On the line now to the Director General of the National Treasury, Dr. Duncan Pieterse. Duncan, good evening. Good to talk to you tonight. What work's been done in the last few months that's led you as the National Treasury to make the announcements to lower the inflation target now?
Good evening, Stephen, and good evening to your listeners. Well, as the Minister indicated earlier today, there's been actually more than a year's worth of work between ourselves and the Reserve Bank. You'll recall that a few years ago, we commissioned a paper by two former central bankers to review our inflation targeting regime. And they, in fact, said at the time that we were out of step with the rest of the world. That review then culminated in our macroeconomic review, where we assessed this further. That was then followed by a joint research program between the South African Reserve Bank and the National Treasury through the Macro Standing Committee, which is a committee of officials from both institutions. They then finalized that work about a month or so ago and made a recommendation to the Minister and the Governor for a point target of 3% with a 1 percentage point tolerance band.
There will obviously be a little bit of pain in some ways before we see the long-term benefits, and we would expect quite substantial longer-term benefits. Has there been any modelling on how much longer interest rates will have to stay slightly higher to get us to 3%?
So, Stephen, if you look at what's happened, for example, to bond yields over the last few months, and that is, of course, the interest rate that government pays on its bonds that we issue in order to finance our budget deficit. Those bond yields have already come down, and they've come down by almost 2 percentage points over the last few months. That's 200 basis points. And the reason those bond yields have come down is in part because of the lower inflation environment that has contributed to lower bond yields. Now, that means that interest rates have already started coming down because bond yields set a lot of the other interest rates in our economy. So some of the benefit we have already seen. Certainly, if we are able to anchor inflation at 3%, which is where it already is currently, and maintain that over the longer term, as well as continue to build the fiscal credibility that we've been able to do over the last few months, and that culminated in today's MTBS, certainly interest rates should come down. Now, the reason that's important is because cost of credit comes down for households if interest rates are lower, and over 60% of our GDP is linked to household consumption. And then secondly, the cost of capital comes down, so we can invest more and we can deliver higher growth outcomes.
There are other big announcements that were made today as well. You have, I think, it's between 18 and 19 billion rand more than you expected to have. At the same time, there are some cutbacks that you're making. Some projects are being cut. In an environment where I'm sure everybody's knocking on your door asking for more money, how did you decide what to cut?
Well, what this budget actually does, Stephen, relative to the budget that was announced a few months ago, what the MTBPS actually does is it actually takes the 18 to 19 billion in additional revenue that we received this year and allocates about 15 billion of that. So, in fact, expenditure goes up in this budget relative to the one that was tabled a few months ago. And the main additional expenditure that we've decided to allocate is for infrastructure, and that is for Transnet. And part of that is because we believe that a Transnet that invests in the iron ore corridor and invests in the North Corridor, which is the corridor that transports coal, is a Transnet that will have a healthier balance sheet and that will generate more revenue for the fiscus. So the bulk of the additional revenue that was gained this year actually went to support infrastructure projects. So overall, we believe that will have a positive revenue and growth impact for the economy.
There are some plans to cut back a little bit on civil servants' benefits, the early retirement issue as well. Do you think that's going to lead to tangible results? Won't there be a bit of opposition to that, perhaps?
Well, what this MTBPS does, Stephen, is that it already announces 6.7 billion in savings over the next 3 years. And that was really about scaling down programs that are not working, in this case, the public transport network grant, as well as efficiencies from eliminating double dipping and other fraud in social grants. We are going to build on that work through the ghost worker audit that we are currently doing, through the review of other grants within the system. Early retirement helps because we are through early retirement making some funds available to exit workers to rejuvenate the civil service and replace those with younger workers that are often paid lower wages as well. So all of these initiatives will over time create much more efficient spending. And that is really what the Targeted and Responsible Savings Initiative tries to do. We were able to get some gains in this MTBPS in the form of the 6.7 billion. And certainly the Minister of Finance plans to make further announcements in this regard at the time of the budget next year.
As I understand it, the Minister Enoch Godongwana was asked today about the plan by the Health Department to end the medical aid tax credit. I wasn't in the room, but I've seen various reporting that he said that's an attack on the middle class. Is the Treasury opposed to that idea? Are you going to tell the Health Department no?
Well, what the Minister confirmed today, Stephen, was that there is no announcement on medical tax credits currently. And the Minister also said that at the moment he has no plans to make any announcements in this regard. Of course, we will continue to evaluate all different tax options, and typically we advise on the future of tax policy at the time of the budget, and we will continue to have engagements with the Department of Health. But as of this moment, there are no plans to do away with medical tax credits.
Dr. Duncan Pieterse, thank you so much for the time. Director General of the National Treasury. 21 minutes after 6, you with The Money Show. Edward Kieswetter is the Commissioner at SARS. Mr. Commissioner, good evening. You were able to get around 19 billion rand more than was originally estimated. Where did most of that money come from? Was it mostly the illicit economy?
Stephen, it's a number of things. But let me just speak to what the economy produced. Under corporate taxes, we saw two higher than expected contributions in corporate taxes, mainly from the financial services sector, but also there were some dividend taxes that produced a once-off around about 1.5 billion rand. But the most significant, and then there was domestic VAT, which also indicates higher levels of consumption. But about half of the 18 billion, just more than half of it, actually came from our own compliance efforts. And what that could mean is the additional verifications we do when taxpayers submit their returns and claim VAT refunds. We're able to, in VAT, prevent the outflow of about 5.3 billion rands of refunds. And in corporate taxes, we were able to collect from the refunds, but also invoking 19.3 about 2.5 billion extra revenue. And then there was other odds and ends from fuel levy, dividend taxes. But collectively, here's for me, I think, a good data point. Firstly, we see that Treasury has now revised the GDP nominal rate from 6.3 to 5.3. So what explains a 9.3% increase in revenue? Well, that is a 14% increase in compliance revenue year on year. It's still below our benchmark, our trend benchmark. We would want to be in the band of about 16 to 19%. And we think in the second half of the year, some momentum in the work that we've done in the revenue recovery project will gain some momentum. And so we are confident. But, I mean, it's not just blind confidence. We have a significant machinery that looks at how we will, every inch, it gets us another bit closer to taking the pressure off the minister in the future to look at taxes.
As I understand it, if we get another 20 billion rand, more than is currently estimated before February, we will be saved another tax increase then. Are you confident you can do that?
We've committed, Stephen, that the ring-fence amount of 2 billion, we want to yield at least between 20 and 50 billion. But the debt that we are now chasing, a significant component of that becomes more complex. So, for example, in the first cohort, the 35 billion we collected were debt that required a follow-up call, an SMS reminder, a gentle nudge here and there. The debt we are getting into now are more complex debt. It requires people with a higher level of skill, people who can understand and analyze financial statements, to look at whether companies actually can afford the debt if they don't dispute it. We've seen an increase in applications for debt deferment payment arrangements and for compromises. There's a 35% increase in court civil judgments, for example. So the next tranche of debt will require higher levels of skills. So we are looking at litigation attorneys, we're looking at legal debt collectors, and we've only begun to build that in the second quarter of the first half. So from about July to September, we started gaining that. We've employed about 80 people to look at more specialized debt collection, and we're hoping to ramp that up to 250. But we're also fishing in a market that doesn't always produce the kind of skills we need.
Edward Kieswetter, thank you so much, the Commissioner at SARS.